Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt, yet again, from Divination Counseling Service. Today I'm here to present the Ingress chart for December 21st, 2025. It occurs in the East Coast, 10:03:07 a.m. I just want to point out that when you look at the Aries point, and it goes right to the sun, as it should, we can see that there's a lot of little action going on down here. So we're going to talk about that. But I also want to point out that unlike a new moon chart, which I did 2 days ago, or a full moon chart, this one you could see last for months. This one is going to be kind of playing in the background as we go through life, as I said, for maybe, 9 months or something. So this one lasts a really long time. So with that said, back to my AI stuff, I actually looked at some of these pictures. So just to kind of get in a more in-depth view. And the first thing I want to talk about is you see this Venus with Juno, and they are conjunct, and how they both are, Sun is in the middle with Mars on the other side. So we have a midpoint between Venus and Mars equaling the Sun, and then we have Juno and Mars with the Sun in the middle. Okay, so one of the things that I can do with the AI even better is start putting all these things together, because not only do we have a Neptune at the Aries point, but we also have Jupiter affecting what's going on at the Aries point. Now, I want to point out, and Chiron, okay? I want to point out that you think that with Jupiter there, it'd be really good, and in many ways there will be some healing and expansion through that healing, but I also feel that some of that healing is going to come with tears, because Chiron is still hanging out, and I think I talked about that in the last chart. So I do want to point out that we have to start looking for alternative methods in terms of how we're going to deal with our lives, and that can be anything from readjusting your budget to eating differently, if you will. So in this particular case, Chiron is in the second house, heading to the third house, okay? And in the second house, we're looking at things like who we are and what is our value, our worth. Now, it's not just what are our values, ethics, and morals, because I do think that's part of it. But I also think it's bigger. It's also the idea of how you're being treated by other people. And this is particularly highlighted when you look at Juno sitting also with Mars in this lineup. Okay, so basically one of the things we can look forward to this year is that relationships, some of them will be activated. Okay, it's can be in some cases strong chemistry or bond that demands a lot of work. I like to say work partners, because Juno and Mars can also be working or doing something together on a more especially since it's in the Aries point, in a more worldly way, being out there in the public. It also is going to ask us to value our relationships, and some of them will become more defining and binding. And if they survive, as a matter of fact, if they survive, they're going to be 20 times more strong than they are. This is not like a casual Venus type thing. This actually has more what they call, or what the AI calls, purposeful union. I liked it, so I picked it up. So as I move through this, it's also referring to the fact that sometimes people identify through relationships. Okay, they identify themselves through their relationships. It's not uncommon. It happens. So some people would definitely be more involved in the identity of a relationship. Neptune is also in there, and remember that this can do things like partners can deceive one another. Partners can be deceptive with one another. Okay, but don't worry, with Jupiter, I still feel it's healing, and with Chiron, but it's almost like I had something happen recently, and it made me realize that I need to move on. I need to move on. And it wasn't a relationship with a person, it was a relationship with a system, with an entity. And it was time. It's something I had thought about, but due to some things that happened recently, I don't need to think about it anymore. I just need to do it. So I think that's going to happen to a lot of people. But not only can relationships be deceptive, and that includes self-deception. That's when you like tell yourself, oh, this person's really great, when they're not, okay? Or this person's really perfect when there is no such thing. It can also be telepathic or emphatic connections between partners because of the Neptune. Okay, so there's a sense here of maybe being more spiritual or having a connection on a deeper, more telepathic, more psychic level. Okay. I'm going to get back to, I'm really working down here right now. I know that we have this and we have that, and I'll get to that. But I'm really concentrating right now on the big scope here, and then I'm going to add on. Okay. With Jupiter in the mix, the relationship is more visible. Okay. It's more public. Mine was, even though it was an entity rather than an individual. It's also meaningful and influential. Okay. Nothing here is going to stay hidden. All right. It's a passionate, committed relationship that defines identity, operates on an idealized or psychic level, expands meaning or belief, and manifests publicly as a collective theme. Let me repeat that. It's a passionate, committed relationship. So it doesn't mean it's your personal relationship. It can be a work relationship. But it defines your identity. It operates on an idealized or psychic level. So there's a lot of intuitive, a lot of karma, a lot of spirit. And this meaning, it expands the meaning of, expands meanings, but also our beliefs, and it can manifest publicly as a collective theme. I think it is a collective theme. I think a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is collective. Not just because it falls in the Aries point, but also because of what it represents. Okay, so we have to be careful of some things, okay? Over-idealization of our partners. Loss of self through the relationships. Acting impulsively because of a passion. I might have been guilty of that yesterday. Public pressure on a private bond, okay? These are things that are, it's also seeing yourself or basing, yourself as though you're less than. It's like a loss of self because of a relationship. It's like you're less than because of this relationship. And it can also be public pressure on a private bond, okay? So it's also referring to higher manifestations, where you have soul partnerships and public presence through that. Relationships as a mission or a calling. Couples seen as symbolic, inspirational, or idealized. Creative, spiritual, or teaching partnership. Strong sexual, emotional, or psychic bond. We kind of covered that a little bit, but I wanted to cover it more. So in this picture, okay, it's like an ideal that's made believable. Believe in it. If you really want something, really believe in it. Work toward it. Make those efforts, okay? A relationship that is passionate, committed, idealized, and deeply tied to one's identity. One that becomes visible to others and carries meaning beyond the two people involved. Okay? So that's that little, here we go, little combo down here. All right? Now, I'm going to come up a little. All right, let me do, yeah, this is for the next one. And I wanted to, let me do this first. We have like a really weird thing. Here's Sun, Neptune, Jupiter, and the Aries point itself. Okay, now Chiron's in there. I didn't put it in at this point. And basically, with Neptune and the Sun, there's going to be some confusion about our own identity. So you see how that ties in with those partnerships. Okay, it could also be that your identity is infused with ideas, visions, and inspiration. And it's going to all be amplified because of the Jupiter and because this Sun Neptune is about the bigger vision. Okay? Let me move, I have a lot of notes again. Here we go. Anything, okay, so we have a lot of optimism that can bring hope. Okay? So this is, we, despite the crying and the tears, with the Jupiter, there can be some optimism. It also means that people, you and I, especially in our own lives, can personify the Sun, Neptune, Jupiter for other people. We could be the healing source. Okay? It's about teachers, guides, healers, and visionaries. And it's about people whose story carries meaning for other people. And it's often faith-based, artistic, or humanitarian. Okay? It can also be idealizations that are unrealistic. So you see how this balances. Astrology is nothing is all good or all bad. Good things lead to bad things, oftentimes corruption. But bad things also tell us where the boundaries are, and we've got to find them. Watch for confusion between belief, what I believe, and what is fact. Okay? It's also over-promising, being seen through rosy-colored glasses. Okay? It's also related to public ideal, collective vision, faith made visible. So it'll be a lot of religious stuff. Okay? Inspired leadership and the dreamer on the public stage. I don't have anything against religion, but I more tend to the old religions because I like the way my teacher, my Iranian teacher actually put it, is that the newer religions all kind of feature death, whereas the older religions really feature life. So I guess I'm just a pagan at heart. So moving on, we're going to be looking at, okay, here's one. Now see, I keep going up, okay? So I want to look at Mercury Moon, okay? And Mercury Moon is right above, I'm going to get to that with the asteroids. I got a lot of asteroids in here this time. So the Mercury Moon, here I am, is really interesting because it's psychic. It's emotional, mental, psychic, okay? And it's also like a psychic communication. It's like being able to be telepathic with people, even if that's not who you are. It means that dreams or symbolic messages are happening to you. And this is a really good thing. It's channeling, dream symbols, public emotional intellect. And again, this is all public because the people are represented by the moon in this chart. Just be careful of things like mental overload, absorbing collective anxiety, which, we've been dealing with, difficulty distinguishing personal feelings from the feelings of other people. So it's over-believing impressions without grounding. Okay, so you really want to be careful of that. Jupiter manifests both clarity and excess, but it's also about those things relating to structure matters, okay? Jupiter's not good with structure. That I can tell you, okay? A couple things I've written down. This is a mind, emotional, collective transmission picture. In other words, this is happening to everybody. This is part of our ascension. I've talked about it before. And as a result, we're moving to higher frequencies. And in these higher frequencies, there's more intuitive ability overall. Its emotional and mental impressions are psychically received. See, we're getting things right in our head now. It's amplified with all of this, especially with that Jupiter, and it's going to be expressed publicly as a collective information. So it's like, it's going to be right out there. Okay, so there's stuff coming, lots of it. This is not imagination, it's receptive transmission. It's referring to a person who instinctively knows what is happening emotionally and physically. This is not just a person. This is the general population. It gives meaning and expresses it out into the world, often before others are even aware of it. So you're going to find yourself kind of doing things like that, where, you know, so here it is. This is where we're looking. Mercury to the moon. Okay? It's everybody, the whole world. We're all looking at things. We're all kind of ascending right now. Okay. So I also went with, I gotta find it because I had it. There it is, Poseidon, it's in my hand. Okay, so now I'm gonna come up higher. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to Poseidon Ascendant. All right, that's very spiritual as well. Poseidon, besides being propaganda and gaslighting, but Poseidon with the Ascendant. Now, this is more DC, and I did leave the DC stuff at this point for toward the end. I'll go into some stuff where I added in some asteroids. But this is people who embody a belief rather than just holding it. Okay, it's about the higher mind. It's about ethics, ideals, and truth seeking. Okay, it is about the truth. Huge. Okay, and it's what's happening is that these whatever is personal is becoming public. All right, so if you were somebody who was trying to hide something, you got something going on, this is not a good time. Okay, it's about how things cannot stay hidden. It's about qualities that are even noticed by others. That, you know, the subtleness of whatever is going to be noticed by others. And basically what it is the Ascendant and the Poseidon, okay, and even the Ascendant is like all about, you know, just kind of becoming more projected in the world, but with an attitude of inspiration, fact-based. So we're going to all hopefully become a little realistic. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, next. Jupiter is involved in this. And again, this adds to the scope and reach of what's happening. It's central to who we are as people. All of this. Neptune is opening that channel. Neptune is not rational, but it's also not material. Okay? And it's a spiritually inspired identity that becomes public and influential, often acting as a channel for ideas, beliefs, or collective vision. Remember, this is happening everywhere to everyone. This is not a personal chart I'm reading. It's also about inspired leaders, okay, and somebody with a visionary presence. So it might be that during this time, we are going to have aha moments with regards to other people. Okay, some people may be coming forward, maybe people coming out of the shadows. It is artists and writers expressing their dreams, so it's a really great time if you do that. Counselors that work with belief, faith, or meaning, it's a good time. A person who embodies spiritual or moral ideals, great time. Okay? Be careful. Over idealization, inflated egos, messiah tendencies. Only I can fix it, only I. We already have that going on, don't we? Confusion between belief and reality, that's going on already. And public disillusionment, especially if your boundaries are weak. This requires grounding. Okay, so we all have to ground ourselves. And one of the things that I say here is do things that are taking care of you. Be good to yourself. Okay, that's going to be really important. So the next thing I want to look at is this Aries point. Okay, so I did pictures for this. Now I'm going to skip this first one because this is about changes that are happening in leaps and bounds. Things, they are a changing. We aren't going back ever again. And what we need to do is move forward and idealize what would be important to you moving forward. That would go also for the Jupiter, which is also there, and the Chiron. Again, moving forward, I'm experiencing this, is anxiety and tears, and oh my goodness, I've been having a heck of a time. So my heart goes out to everybody. I have a moon that's affected. I can't get away with this. But what I do want to look at besides this, because I talk about this has been going on for months, and what I did want to do is I do want to talk about the rest of it. So I'm going to be honest, okay? What I did was, now this is for the country, so I'm going to get to this in a minute, but here we go. Kronos and Mercury. This I'm going to need later. Boy, too much paper. Okay, so with Kronos and Mercury, you can imagine what we're going to be hearing, because this decrees, well, geez, I just, woke up to one of them. But it's also about how we receive the public authoritative on a psychic level, because of Jupiter and Neptune and all that's with it. Okay? It's not casual communication. It assumes status and or responsibility. Okay? So it's really telling us that somebody is the voice. Okay? And it is referring to also spiritualizing what they are saying. In other words, this is a really good, the Pope might say something. Really, I can't tell you how important this whole spiritualization thing is for all of us. It's about command, perception, and expression. Okay? It's an authoritative voice that constantly transmutes intuitive or psychic information into the collective spirit. Well, we already have that with somebody who's lying to us. So we have to be able to decipher the difference between those things, okay? It's also being treated as an oracle rather than a person. I wouldn't know that. Pressure to always know the answer. And it's also about those people who over-identify with authority, okay? It's also psychic overload amplified by responsibility. I'm there. So it's management issues, not negotiations. It's about management, okay? It's a public communicator of unseen truths. An interpreter of collective psychic material. Now realize that can go the other way, okay? It's a person whose words carry authority because they speak from an intuitive psychic knowing. So again, look for these people, okay, whose voice naturally enters the public or collective sphere. So look for that. Look for that as you're looking for guidance with what's going on. Now, I did do the ascendant, which is also this country, and the ascendant was affected by Poseidon. Okay? That's here in the United States. So that's here. Now here's another one that's here, and I'm just going to briefly go through this. The midheaven. I just want to look at it. For me, just kind of looking at these things. First of all, I want to show you that the oppression through politics, the oppression through things that people have been feeding us. And I believe with the South Node, it's hitting a problem. The other thing that's really good up here is Admetus to Uranus, which is that some things will be stopped. Okay, it comes with an Apollon Venus. Okay, so I used Admetus Uranus, midheaven, Apollon Venus, and Kronos. Because look, there's Kronos, big dot. Okay? And here we have a situation that could not move until something snaps. An abrupt release. Okay? Something is going to abruptly, radical reconstruction under pressure. Sudden disruption of a stuck condition. Breaking free from a long-standing limitation. A forced awakening after stagnation. I'm kind of going through that, and it all happened yesterday. So, believe me, we're all feeling this already, okay? All of this is then going to be made public, okay? And what will happen is that it makes a picture that makes something visible that deals with vocational and direction. And it could be a turning point. And whatever it is, the public recognition of that shift is something that just had to happen, okay? A new role will emerge. It's not subtle, okay? It is not subtle. So there's, again, some of this is going to be because of the people that we're now starting to connect with. And it was really nice to see that Henderson is not in the lineup of asteroids this year. So people will be reconnecting, okay? You might even find that there are certain things that get monetized after a long delay, and their ability then to wider reach through people, clients, or allies. It's a value finally recognized on a larger scale. Okay? This is not a beginner energy. It assumes experience. That's the Chronos. Okay? In plain language, a long-stalled situation suddenly breaks open, forcing a major public or career shift for some people. Out of that disruption comes expanded value, connections, and recognition, ultimately placing the person in a higher status of an authoritative role. Now let me explain this a little bit to you. With Chiron in the Aries point, with Jupiter, with Neptune, some people are getting promoted right now. They're kind of moving on. But I'm going to be honest with you. In that process of moving on, there's going to be tears and problems. Don't go backward. There will be a temptation to do that. Do not do that. This whole thing is about moving forward. It's okay. Okay, and I did go through this, placing the person on higher status or authoritative world. Yeah, so it is time that some people are going to be moving on and moving up. Okay, so again, we have career redefinition. We can take this time to do that. Public acknowledgement after obscurity. Sudden leadership roles that just appear. Breakthroughs following frustration. That's what a lot of people are going to have with their work. Authority gained because they survived the limitation. Okay? So it's really not a bad one. It's actually a pretty good one. But again, realize that everything going on right now is about our ascension, and that will not come easy. Okay? Now, I'm going to move into the other chart, and then we're going to take a peek at some of the asteroid combinations, because it was such a strange asteroid report. First of all, you only have to look at the Aries point, so that shortens what we're doing. But one of the things that really got to me was how many of the asteroids are conjuncting each other. Huge sections of asteroids. And the problem with that is that energy gets kind of dispersed. And so it's kind of hard to decipher that one thing or this one thing. And this is actually a problem with some people's charts, my chart. There's just so many that it, as Gary would say, it kind of throws it all out there and it kind of separates, how do I say this? It works together, but it makes the energy a little bit more watered down. That's the word I'm looking for. So let's go and check this out. Okay, I'm back, and I never did say this, and I do want to point this out because I normally check I know, Gary says I have a good eye. I check the midheaven and the ascendant, and it is identical in both programs. Yay! So we have a 1221 Aquarius rising for the chart for DC, and we have a 1 Sagittarius 18 up at the midheaven. And just kind of breezing through this again, I don't think I saw very many. Neptune is affecting this chart, by the way. I should say that. Neptune is affecting between the first and the second house, where we're really confused about ourselves and also our value, our worth. Okay, that's us on the East Coast. That's not necessarily everybody. I will say that from the third house, heading from the second, there will be victory. There is victory for all of us, okay? There really is. Ingress tells us how much, Ingress is right here at 1, where we have a 118, is telling us about how chaotic and scattered sometimes our personal lives are, okay? We're bonding with other people, which we talked about, that we extensively talked about that. It's highlighted in this chart with Sappho, and this is platonic relationships as well, even though it's retrograde, as it is still in, and actually it's going backwards, so it's right on that cusp between the 4th, our private life, and the 5th, our expressions and our lovers, okay? Hades, big one, is on the cusp of the 6th, just inside the 6th. Now remember, Hades is lack. It's also, I can't think of the word, deterioration, bacteria. It's a lot of stuff. One of the things I'm going to tell you is please watch your stomachs, okay? Especially if you're on the East Coast. Hades is just terrible with stomach issues. I'm just going to put that right out there. And it is literally sitting on the house of health. Okay, I did see, now Hygeia shows up. I'm going to go into a lot of these asteroids when I get there. But yes, stomach shows up a couple times because listening to your gut and being more aware of your gut is in the chart with the asteroid. So there's even more on that. So take care of yourself. Very important. As I run through, we have up here ornamenta. And ornamenta goes from the 7th to the 8th house. And please let's talk about what that is. Ornamenta means that something is, how do I put this? It's ornamental. It's just like, it's like for show. Okay? Some of these executive orders that we've been hearing in our country, remember this is Washington, D.C., is for show. Half of them won't go through, more than that, because they get lawsuits. But it's a show. It's a show. And that's what is happening. Now, what concerns me is that show is moving direct, and it is in the 8th house, which is combined resources. So it's almost like you want to ask, oh, you're just doing that for show. Well, how much did it cost us? Okay? Same thing if you're living on the East Coast, you may question that regarding somebody in your life. Okay? Then I move on, and I get up here to the midheaven, and it's hard to see, but endings are featured in this midheaven. And the irony is that it's going to cross over because it's really close to crossing over. It's less than a degree to cross over that midheaven. But in the 9th house, it is marking out that there will be change. Change is upon us. Okay, that's always a nice thing to find out. Moving on, the again, when it comes to money, and again, boy, I could really relate to a lot of this. A lot of tears over money, especially bigger money. Okay, so in my case, I got scammed. They took big money. I know I'll get it back, but it's going to be the hassle that I have to go through. Um, and the tears. Okay, so when you have that there, and it's look at how it falls into the 12th house, the house of hidden enemies. Okay, please, people, I can't say this enough. Please be vigilant when it comes to scammers. Okay. The moon, I'm just going to point this out. The moon is also running with Astrea, Icarus, and Vesta. Okay. So again, I'm looking at relationships that are more like work relationships or goal oriented or people that are working, okay, taking risks, but nothing is going to be resolved quickly. As a matter of fact, many things that will be going on this year may not be resolved this year. They'll be lining up to get resolved by the end of the year, maybe, or next year. So there's a little tidbits for us. Now, just moving into this dial and looking at, notice with the moon even here, which is the people, but it's also connections with females or people that are or using their divine feminine. I want to put it that way. So here we have, again, Chiron is right there. Okay, I'm going to go to the minute, but Chiron is right there. So is Jupiter. And it equals Eurydice, which is things and people that we depend on. Okay? Boy, every time I look at this, right? Okay, so I'm going to okay, now I'm going to do this first. Okay, so asteroid-wide, we're still dealing with voracities. I know I talk about it almost every video lately, but it's the lies we tell ourselves because we just feel that, this is what we need to make, but we don't need it, and we'll find out. Chiron, which I've talked quite a bit about. But also Chase is running with Mentor, and I think last time in the new moon chart, I talked about looking for a hero because Champion was there. I think here now we're looking for a mentor, or we're looking out for our mentor. It's only about literally 11 minutes apart. I come down here. This is what I mean. They're going to start bunching. We have Hill, Hephaestus, Hygeia. And basically what that means to me is it's an uphill climb regarding health issues and our ability to take care of ourselves. So a lot of us, and I'm in this group as well, are struggling a little bit with our health, okay, and have some things going on that need to be dealt with. Now, the irony is this is the Aries point. I'll just give you my own example. And I'm still dealing with sinus issues, and I have to have, through the periodontist, I have to have a sinus surgery. Well, that's Neptune, okay? Very Neptune. And there's my hill, especially if you knew where I had to go to, how I would be climbing to get to my periodontist. And Hephaestus and Hygeia, all medical, okay? Then we come down to another bunch group, okay? We have Dynasties, okay? Eurydice, Escapulus, and Hera. This could be concerned about substance abuse or drugs, even if they're drugs that are given by the doctor, that might be used by our partners or our significant others. So look out for that. You also get the sense that there could be some, Juno's more for this than Hera, but there's a tendency to score keep with these, keeping score, all right? So you have, again, pay attention to abuses, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, workaholics, because, and you might be doing this because you feel like you're really dependent on this. Remember, voracities is in here, but it does affect the health. And so the health is very affected, and it looks like it's a partner. It could be a work partner, could be a significant other. The next one is Cupido fair. Is the company fair? Is the party fair? Well, that's one of the questions you would have to ask the Republicans, because I never think they're fair. They've been cheating for decades. So there's this whole sense of, organizations and how fair they are. So if you work for a big company, if you're having work done on a building or a house, you will constantly have to ask yourself if something is fair. There's also a highlight on websites with Lee. Okay, so websites, where are you going for your news, your information? Maybe you're using websites. I literally had a problem with a website. This is where we are. And you'll notice that your intuition, a lot of things are seemingly getting worse, okay? But especially intuition, because the intuition is so important this month. So you got to understand that the melpomene, okay, is telling us that, and it's really only in by 7 minutes, that some things seem to be getting worse. But what it's asking you to use is your intuition. And I'm going to talk about Barrett more in a minute. Varda and the sun, the truth that sets you free, sets us, all of us free, could be coming out in the next year. I'm going to say lots of truths. Here's another major lineup. Morpheus, which talks a lot about our dreams. Gawain, which is, there's a lot of stuff about Gawain, and I'll get into it. I always used it as somebody who's intellectually submissive. Okay? They may know better, but due to hybris, which is also with it, hubris, which is also with it, you get this sense of faded. Something is faded. And again, I'm going to get more into this. You also have bam. So whatever's going on is really hitting the mark, really hits home, and maybe people dreamt this, like they had prophetic dreams is a possibility. Alicia says that when we go into destructive mode, we have to be very, very careful of self-destructive rages, or rages that could cause harm to us particularly. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that one. The word not is in here. So there's going to be a lot that we deal with the word not. Okay, nope, not happening. Nope, not yet. Okay, so get ready. Okay, this picture overall is here we go again, public, psychic, mythic identity. It's a lot. Think about those words. Okay? This is all about, dreams that are telepathy, hypnotic perceptions, ethical containment that stays within the boundaries of our psychic ability. And so you got to be careful of things like overreach with this, because that's what hubris will do. Don't go beyond what's humanly possible. I think I've been up in that alley too. The asteroid warns the ability itself crosses thresholds. So you want to be careful. And other people could be shocked, because whatever's going on is going to be sudden, immediate, and undeniable. There is that bam. With Shiva, that's what they call destructive and regeneration all at the same time. In other words, you destroy something to build it. And it works very cleanly with Neptune, and especially when supported by Jupiter. So again, this stuff is dispersing energy all over the chart. And psychic perceptions here can tend to break illusions, and the truth arrives by destroying what is false. Remember, we're going to be finding out a lot this year. Okay? Now, with that said, there's an asteroid called Schmidt in there, and this is the witness, the recorder, the one who marks or documents this process. I listen to a historian. And there's a conscious awareness of what is perceived. There's an ability to remember, translate, or articulate psychic information. Again, it's about the intuitive. It's about the raising of the frequency. The observer function does not get lost in this one. It's about reception and transmission. It also refers to the fact that nothing that's happening is accidental. It's all fated. Okay? It's receiving information or sudden knowing or symbolic imagery often before others are ready for it. This insight can be unsettling because it dissolves illusion, but it carries ethical intent and personal clarity. In other words, we got to go through it. We got to go through it. What does perceive here is that we do not stray, do not stay in the private, and enter into the collective. Excuse me. You have to be careful of self-undoing, self-destruction, inner collapse, turning aggression, or pain inward. You have to be careful of that because we tend to do that. It's also talking about plausible, visible, or activated circumstances that are going to be very aware through the public or visible. Very, very visible. Everything is visible. The inner collapse is not hidden. And it's the stress can be triggered by external pressures, exposure, or collective projection. All right? It's about sensitivity turning inward destructively if not contained. So here we go again. When you come up with these things, you're going to have to do the tear thing, and then you're going to have to fix it. That's just the way it's going to be right now. And these experiences are going to be amplified because of the Jupiter connection, and they're also going to be extremely public. And you have to also be careful of losing yourself in the psychic role. In other words, you can't be too absorbed in that. They don't erase Alicia, which can be self-destructive, but they do contain it. Okay? So here we have psychic sensitivity combined with collective exposure can lead to self-negation or self-destructive tendencies, okay, if we don't use the energy well. Really, really important. It's about channeling psychic material outward, and it's not about internalizing the collective pain. There's so much pain collectively that you do not want to take it in. Don't be so attached to your ideals that you put yourself into a bad place, and you don't want to be self-destructive that leads to a collapse, because you could with Shiva. Okay, that's in the picture. Okay, it's right now what we really need is grounding. We really, really need to be grounded. So I'm going to leave you with, let's be grounded. Let's use that psychic intuition that we all have. Don't lose yourself in it, but by the same idea, allow what it's telling you to seep up and begin to notice that sometimes what we feel on a psychic level, we'll pick up the newspaper and there we see an example of it. When astrology is going on, because not everybody has such strong Aries points. I do, but not everyone does. Realize that you could also be experiencing this through what you see on television, movies, especially with Neptune. I mean, Neptune is film, movies, pictures, okay? So be aware that you may not have to deal with these energies directly, but you might be dealing with them through film, media, okay? And with that said, use that media to help you to have a greater understanding of your own value and your own self-worth, because this is a healing year. We're not going to probably get real far, but we are going to heal. And I'm not saying that the healing will be complete, but we will be well on our way as this year completes. With that said, as always, thank you for watching this video, and until we meet again, I wish you all only happy reading.